Welcome, welcome, welcome to this. And I'm going to coin the phrase from you, Rich, lunch and learn session with us here at Affiverse and Anura. So, welcome up on screen, Rich Kahn. I'm going to give you a minute to introduce yourself in a second. So, welcome to why investing in affiliate fraud detection is crucial for your business. I'm Leanne Johnstone. I'm the host of this webinar, and I'm from a company called Affiverse. And joining me is Rich Kahn from Anura. And as we get started today, I want you to think about fraud for your affiliate program and some of the fraud that you might have experienced in your career so far working in digital marketing, because I'm pretty sure that you're going to have a lot of questions for us during the conversation as we're unmasking the true effect of affiliate fraud today and how you can combat this in your business. Also, as we deep dive into fraud and why it's so important for you to tackle affiliate fraud in your program and invest in ways to stamp it out. When I've kind of looked at my stats at the end of the month, seen some really strange numbers and gone, oh no, I'm going to have to go and dig through the data and figure out what's happened here and why I'm seeing fraud come through my affiliate program. So if you're tired of leaving money on the table, you're definitely in the right place with us today. We're going to get started. Introduce myself in case you don't know who I am. My name is Leanne Johnston. I'm the founder of Affiverse. We're an agency, a media company, and also a training business. So pretty much if you need anything with a you can come to us and we'll be able to help you at any stage of your life cycle. And now over to my fabulous patient guest who has been up on the screen with me here. Rich Kahn, welcome to this webinar. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Anura, and why, when it comes to fraud, you are the only person that anybody ever really needs to talk to.
Well, we could have a whole webinar just on my background. As you know, anybody in the space for as many years as I have been probably has similar stories. I've started my first internet business in '93. It was a digital marketing email firm. So if you look at the history, internet was given to the public in September 1st of 1991 by all the accounts that I could find. 2 years later, I got on and started my business. But what was interesting is about 21 years ago, my wife and I started an ad network, which was driven by affiliates. And we started growing the business. It started in 2003, started spending a little time growing it. And within the first year, I started noticing anomalies in the data and stuff didn't look right. And I had seen fraud before in the past. So I knew it was fraud. And I remember saying, I don't want to be the guy solving fraud. I just want to be the guy that's building my network. I can just get some type of tool, bolt it onto my platform, and be on my way.
Yeah.
Well, in 2004 and 5, there didn't exist a third-party fraud solution that you could license. So as a developer, I figured I'd write it myself. And obviously, it's not a set and forget situation. It's a constant evolving situation, monopolized a lot of my time. But as we eliminated the fraud from the affiliate network, our company started to grow. I mean, and we just had crazy growth year over year. I ended up winning the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award for technology, which was based on the fraud technology I was building. We were on the Inc. 5,000 list 5 years in a row. I mean, it was just because we were able to eliminate fraud, the growth was there. It was great. And then about 10 years into it, I started having clients say, hey, your traffic is so clean. I would like to take your technology that you're using to clean it and use it on other channels of marketing. And at the time, we were like, nah, just buy from us. But over and over, I'm Italian, we're thick-headed, right? And what ended up happening was, let's give it a shot. So we shoehorned it into a client, and he was getting 30% fraud on his organic traffic. Like I'd never seen that before. And we went and spent a lot of time investigating and realized, yeah, you've got some issues here. And we were able to solve it. So it got to a point where we're like, you know what? Let's test this solution against other market leaders and see if we have something different. We did. When performance marketing was on the line, when you really care about accuracy and thoroughness, we really had something different. And we decided to launch it as a standalone solution. So in 2017, we launched Anura. We gave it a name and a dashboard and platform behind it. We launched Anura as a standalone solution so that people can license our technology for any channel of marketing they use.
So that's like a couple of decades there. I mean, it's quite a lot of
Over.
sure. A lot has been learned along the way, and we're going to dig into some of that stuff now because I am seeing a lot more fraud creep into even some of our clients' programs that we're managing, and we're having to be a lot more vigilant in terms of how we assess partners and bring them into programs as well to avoid fraud. Because it has a knock-on effect on a lot of different things. So before we get started on all of that and what everybody's fraud worries are, because I'm pretty sure we're having people join us from lots of different industries, but I think let's get started with, and my favorite quote of all time, and I am a bit of a Marvel fan, is, with great power there comes great responsibility. And as a program manager, you are responsible for your business's budget. And whilst affiliate marketing can be an incredibly powerful tool, big growth comes with a lot of challenges. And the biggest that I've seen through all of the years that I've been in the industry is that when you try and scale and grow, that's when fraud creeps in a lot quicker. So, do you think that's a myth, or do you think that's actually the truth and you've seen it over and over again because there is inefficiencies in the way that we're running and managing partner relationships?
So the bigger you are, the more of a target you are, right?
This is true.
Fraud goes, and this is fraud for, I mean, I've been talking about this for decades. Or let's
Mm,
go back a couple decades ago, right? When the hot thing on the scene was like antivirus, right?
yeah.
Nobody wanted viruses on their machines, sucking their bank information, all kinds of stuff. And so everybody would say, okay, I'm gonna get virus protection, but Mac users didn't need it.
Yeah.
And it was because 95% of the market was Windows and 5% of it was Mac, and
Mm,
Mac had a pretty secure operating system to begin with.
yeah.
So where did the fraudsters focus on? They focus on the big target. Um, Look at where they're targeting their budgets right now. Last year, just to put some numbers behind it, there was, as a global society, we tipped over $600 billion in digital marketing spend,
Mad.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Almost 50% of that was spent in the US. So even if you're not a US company, you have US based campaigns.
Yeah. Of
So the
course.
campaign dollars are spent there. So where do you think fraud focuses on?
In the
US
US.
campaigns. However, they're equal opportunity, fraudsters. They go after all markets, but that just seems to be a heavy target because the dollars are there. Almost I think it was 275 billion was spent in the US last year. But going back to that number, 600 billion. Last year, by our estimates, based on all the data we scanned from hundreds of clients and all this data that we're collecting, we identified about $125 billion was stolen last year to fraud.
That's
So, like,
immense.
it's a huge number. It represents, I think, 21%, if I have the math right. Um, but think of it on the affiliate side. You're literally paying affiliates to do something, and they're going to find a way to cheat the system. And anytime I do affiliate-based marketing scans, the average fraud find on an affiliate marketing scan is about 45%. So about half of the traffic. So one of the things I like to talk to people about is, what's your number?
Mm,
And they was like, what do you mean? I go, what's your number of fraud? What's the percentage of fraud that will take your business down?
yeah.
Right? We know at 100%, no business can survive if they had 100% fraud. It just, I shouldn't say that. I've seen businesses selling fraud. So
Yeah.
let's say the traditional business would be out of business if they were 100%.
Yeah.
What about 70% or 60% or 40%? What number do you hit where your customers start leaving you and going somewhere else? And it's just a matter of time before you hit that number, unless you do something about it today,
Mm.
because they're looking at targets. And as you grow, like you said, the bigger you grow, the more of a target you have because you have dollars to spend and they're going to go after your account.
But also, do you think it's because there's an era of desperation to actually grow quickly? I mean, performance marketing channel has always been quite tightly measured because the data is there to do that in real time. Like you can track and see clicks and impressions and sales in real time. There is validation that happens in some industries, which takes a little bit longer to sort of come through. But I think, I'm seeing a lot more affiliate managers in the industry getting a little bit more desperate to try and grow their targets and not actually doing some of the due diligence that we're going to talk about today. I think that it impacts or it kind of like builds on and escalates the problem of all of this fraud that we're seeing in industries.
Well, let's let the cat out of the bag a little bit, right? So I've actually and this is one of the interesting things. So speak to a lot of customers. I've done probably over 1,000, conversations with clients directly about their fraud issues and about, ways to solve the problem and everything.
Mm,
Not everybody wants to solve that problem. They all want to grow. And I literally spoke to somebody who said they want the ability, when somebody's complaining about poor quality traffic,
Mm.
fraudulent traffic is at the end of the day what they were talking about.
Hear it every day. Yeah.
They want to turn on something that's going to block it, and they want to dial up more as they need it, you know. But if someone's not complaining, they want to shut it off.
Mm.
They literally, and I said, so you want to sell fraud? And no, 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 that's not what I'm trying to do. But that's what you're doing. If you're saying, hey, this the squeaky wheel gets the grease, the squeaky wheel gets the fraud protection, and the one that doesn't. So again, and the question is why you look like, well, we have numbers and goals that we have to hit. We have volume
Yeah.
numbers that we have to hit. So they're more concerned about the growth than they are about the quality. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so we've got two things here that we need to tackle before we get into the kind of tactical things. The first thing is what is fraud to you, and understanding what that mechanic is and what that measurement is in your business, and how strict you actually need to be with that, depending on what it is that you're selling and what industry you're in. And the other thing is that if you're a bigger target, be even more vigilant, because all the fraudsters out there are going to be looking at the big targets, because that's where the big budgets are. So if you're working for a really, really big brand, or a big, advertiser, whatever industry it is, assume that you are going to have fraud already before you've even thought about whether you do or you don't, because you're already a target, with a target on your back, because the numbers are there. The numbers are actually making sense for fraudsters to give it a go. And the other thing is that what I've found in some of the programs that we've been managing, it's easy to hide. It's easy to be a really small fraud fish that's defrauding every month in a really, really big program where the numbers are difficult to kind of look at, like 6 to 8 sales a day isn't going to set off any alarm bells in a 10,000 strong affiliate program with 10,000, referral partners. But the point is that it has a knock-on effect to the rest of the business. So, and we talk about that a little bit later, but apart from that, apart from the fact that Ford is costing companies billions, and they don't even know it, like, what are some of the like recent case studies and things that you've seen where you've dealt with a client, they've come in and said, yeah, we think we've got fraud, but it's actually been like way bigger than what they ever imagined? Have you got any like stories that you can tell us about how much fraud actually is costing businesses, and not just on the actual sale transaction, but on all the service support, knock-on effects that it has with customer support, refunds, finance, all of those extra things that add on to the margins?
Yep. So I had a couple different clients with
Yeah.
different issues. And so two different thoughts. Sometimes you have people like, hey, look, I'm curious, because we offer a free trial. Like, let's find out how
Yeah.
much fraud you're dealing with. Like, because if you don't have fraud, which is nobody, but if you don't have fraud, then there's no reason to work together, right? For us to work with somebody. So we need to understand, A, how much fraud you're dealing with, and does it make a financial sense to work with us?
Yeah.
Because, if you're spending, I'll call it $5,000 a month and you've got 5% fraud, the fraud is a small amount. You can probably justify. It's probably cheaper to just pay for that fraud than it is to deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you're spending $1 million a month and you're averaging 25% fraud, you're already paying the fraudsters $250,000 a month. Yeah, it makes financial sense to solve that problem, because if you take that $250,000, take it away from the fraudsters, put it into campaigns that have high performance and true conversion, you're going to see a lift in ROI, and it makes a lot of sense to do that. So I have clients that'll come up to us and say, hey, I'm curious. Like, I don't know if I'm dealing with fraud. Usually when I hear that,
And you
I
are.
know they're around that 10% mark, right?
Yeah.
Because then I have the other scenario where it says, yeah, we're getting clients complaining about this, and I'm just curious. And then all of a sudden we uncover, and I'm thinking of a specific customer. I'm not going to name the name, but they're like, and I basically was in talks with them for about 3 years before they finally said, okay, let's test the waters and find out, because they were kind of scared. They didn't want to lift up the carpet and see what was underneath it. They were curious to say, it's almost like burying your head in the sand is better than or what is, oh, ignorance is bliss.
Bless.
So
But it isn't, because like you said, I mean, if you're spending $1 million a month and 25% of that is fraud, that's quite a lot of money that you can redistribute to other areas of your business. So it could be hiring more staff. It could be paying more, finding new partners that you can invest with that can test different traffic sources. It could be hiring more customer support to give your customers a better experience. So it has a knock-on effect to other departments that you aren't necessarily responsible for. And that's the bit that I kind of want people to think about today. And I know on your website you've got a really great free white paper that you guys can go and download. If you head over to anura.io, there's a really great white paper that details all the different types of affiliate fraud. And I would recommend that you download it. But true or false? I mean, you said, according to the internet, more than 40% of affiliate traffic is potentially fraudulent, but still being paid for. And I think we've discussed that a little bit now. I mean, how do we educate people to make them know that that shouldn't be happening? And how do you think the tides are going to change, especially as we're getting a little bit clearer data without latency anymore? Because fraud was always capable of happening in lots of different instances because tech tools didn't talk to each other in real time, but that's kind of stopping now. And so new types of fraud are coming into play. And I actually reckon it's probably more than 40%. But what's your experience?
So going back to that original question, right? So I had that client who, when they realize that there's something going on, like they
Yeah.
hear it, it tends to be a higher level of fraud. And when I uncovered theirs, they were greater than 60%.
Okay.
So it was earth shattering because, all of a sudden it ran through the entire organization. It was a big organization. Oh my God, according to Anura, we got 60% fraud. What are we going to do? So I said, well, look, I could just be making that number up. Let's find out.
Mm,
Let's use our data to cut that in half. And we come up with a game plan for that and see if your clients feel anything.
yeah.
And within 5 weeks, I think we cut it in half. And the clients were like, oh my God, the back end performance is so much better, double my order. Like they saw the difference. Like they saw it wasn't meaningless. So, and then one other question you asked too um, was, what's our definition of fraud?
Yeah.
So just so we're all clear, because fraud is a very vague word, right?
Mm,
There's all kinds of different types of fraud. There's just out there. So the fraud we're concerned with when it comes to digital marketing is bots,
mm,
malware,
mm.
and human fraud farms. So anything that's automating that's not a real person of interest. Because let's face it, affiliates, what do they want to do? They want to get paid as fast as possible. They want a net 3, they want a net 7, they want to get paid quick. But sometimes if you're doing e-commerce, you can take upwards of 8 or 9 months to actually get the chargeback back. They've already long gone, gotten paid, gotten out of the system. So they know how to play that game. And the last thing you want to do is say, "I'm going to pay you net 45." You'd be dead in the industry if you were paying a net 45 to an affiliate.
Yeah.
In my last company in our ad network, we used to pay them net 45. And we told them, look, we'll pay you really well for your traffic, but I need time to validate it and make sure that there's no
That's
complaints from the
real.
client. And it
And
was
that's
harder to sign up affiliates,
I mean,
but you
that's
got
the
it.
other thing is there's a lot of sub networks popping up as well. Like people that are, oh, I can get you traffic, I can do this, I can do it on a CPA. We're seeing a lot of CPA fraud come in, especially in the iGaming industry in regulated markets where supply and demand are like totally out of sync. Like you're paying really high CPAs and you're finding, yeah, the first 10 that you test are great, and then the other 50 that you ask for come in and they're not great. And even though you've met the partner, you've spoken to them, you've like done your due diligence on the website and where the traffic's coming from, you're still seeing this fraud filter through. And I just want to go to a question because Tira's on here with us. Hi, Tira. It's nice to see you or hear you. But you've asked a really good question. Would you pay the commission if you suspect fraud at the end of the month? And I
No.
think the honest answer is that you have to say no. And you have to be able to show the partner what the data looks like. And that means being transparent. So, numbers don't lie. And I know this is a very, very tricky and difficult thing for affiliate managers to deal with because they feel like they've spent all this time building partnerships with this new referral partner. They've invested in building a campaign. They've spent their company's money to actually run that campaign. And even though they've done the due diligence in terms of checking, is the site valid? Is the affiliate a real person? Have they, contacted the affiliate, spoken to the affiliate before the campaign's gone live? We're still seeing this huge amount of fraud come through where partners are still expecting to be paid for the traffic sources, but they don't want to tell you where the traffic sources come from. So I think we're moving to a space in affiliate marketing where, in order to stamp out this ripple effect and the impact and knock-on effect that it has to other parts of your business and your overall profit margin, really, because if you're getting incoming traffic and having to hire more customer support reps to actually support those customers, and then realizing that those customers aren't legit customers that are repurchasing and actually staying with you, that's impacted your business. And so I think there needs to be a bigger awareness of this piece, that it's not just about the numbers coming in on your Excel spreadsheet every month as an affiliate manager. It's actually the ripple effect that it has if you don't address it head on. So I kind of want you to use the kind of fear tactic now, and kind of put the fear of God in us about what could happen to your business if you don't take care of fraud, and if you don't actually put tactical things in place to stop it. Like, have you got
Yeah.
any scary stories that you can kind of share that just bring
Yeah.
this a little bit more real?
I literally had a client that we brought on. It was a startup business, which is unusual. Usually it's, they're watching every single penny that they're bringing up. And I was impressed that, they didn't have traffic flowing yet and they already signed up with us. They didn't want a trial. They just signed up.
Oh,
And I
wow.
and I questioned him. I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I had my other business and I lost it because of fraud. I had
Wow.
so many chargebacks in a given month that I couldn't pay bills and I had to shut the whole thing down and claim bankruptcy." So I mean that's the worst case scenario, but it doesn't go from zero to that overnight. Like you
No.
start as an affiliate manager or affiliate company, you start to feel the rumblings like, okay, clients are complaining, chargebacks are increasing, questions on quality is increasing. And if you're doing nothing about it, it's just going to keep growing until eventually you hit that number where you can't sustain your business model anymore. So
Yeah.
going back to that question, should you pay that affiliate? Again, the answer is no. But you should also, in your contract, when you sign up affiliates, is you at least, I mean, I used to always have it from the 90s on, would say, we do not pay for fraud, you know, and I used to have some definitions in my contracts about what I considered fraud so
Mm.
that they understood what we were talking about. And I used to work with my affiliates because, again, one of the stages we always talk about is vet out your affiliates.
Yeah.
Get them on a call. You had
Mm.
a guest on one of these webinars once before. It said, she won't deal with anybody unless she's got a couple hundred mutual connections on LinkedIn, which I thought was a phenomenal idea. I love that.
Remember that?
Um, because how many times do you work with affiliate where you have no connections?
Yeah.
And that's a sign of, hey, wait, you might want to double check this person out,
Well, this
especially if
whole
you've been paid for a
industry,
while.
it's been built on snake oil salesmen that are like, hiding in, at events, in corners and events, going, "Hey, come here, look at all the traffic I can get." Like, the whole industry was built on that. And I think we need to be moving away from that. And we can, now that we have data, and we
Yeah,
can now things are, there's no latent, like, space between when a sale happens and when you see it in your reports. Most tracking platforms are now operating in real time. Most tracking platforms allow affiliates to extract data in real time. So they've got the transparency of what happens after the transaction occurs. They can, talk to their affiliate managers and speak to them about it. And I think as affiliate managers, we need to get out of this state of, I need to get more affiliates in the program to grow it. That's not true. Double down on the partners that you know aren't sending you fraud, and go and spend your money there instead, where you know it's going to be legitimate traffic. And even if it grows at a slower rate, it's not having that impact, that knock on effect to other parts of your business. So I want affiliate managers to really think about themselves as custodians of not just the affiliate relationship that they're bringing into their business, but of the profit margin that they're responsible for their business, because that is actually, and I think you said it best, one of the next slides that comes out, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is when you said the fraud has to be seen as a profit center, not a cost. And we'll get to that slide in a minute, but we're kind of there at the conversation already. But what are some of the common misconceptions about fraud and its accurate detection? So can you give us some tidbits? Fraud is different things to different people, and there's lots of different kinds of fraud. And especially now with the advent of AI, where things can be turned around and done very quickly and with a lot of automation, what are you seeing in the fraud space that's going to, like, change our minds about actually dealing with it? Like, why is now the time to get in and get on with detecting it and stopping it?
yeah. Well, it's growing at an accelerated rate,
Yeah.
which means more and more people. Like, again, I've been tracking fraud since the late '90s, digital fraud. Um, just because I was a numbers guy, I was a developer, and that's the kind of stuff that was, is like something interesting to work on.
Yeah.
And as I grew my affiliate network, um, it became a needed facility because we were getting complaints from clients that, hey, we're getting this weird traffic,
Mm.
and I can see the writing on the wall. We wouldn't have that company wouldn't have lasted more than a year or two if that's all it had.
Yeah.
So that's why there was a need to solve that problem. But here's a problem, you know, you have to have um, something in place to, because you vet out a client, you vet out an affiliate, they tell you where they're buying their traffic, but it's
Mm.
where they buy their traffic is where their levels of fraud come from. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many people I said, oh, well, look, they're buying just native advertising, so I know it's clean. And yet we're getting 40, 50% fraud.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, are you sure? Have you vetted that out? No, they just told me that. So
Mm.
you've got frauds, you've got affiliates that are outright defrauding you by basically saying, I'm selling you this, but they're selling you really something else. Then you got the affiliates that, hey, I buy all my traffic from Google Display Network.
Yeah.
So that's where I get all my traffic. Well, Google Display Network has an average of 50% fraud. So
Hmm.
you're dealing with somebody who believes they're doing things right. They don't understand how much fraud is in those channels, and depends on, like, a 50% is an average. You might have somebody who's making purchases who's got 60, 70, 80%. You might have somebody who's doing things a little bit better who's got less. But it's not the person you're dealing with, it's where they get their traffic from is where the fraud emanates from.
And I
So
think
that
that's the thing is that affiliate managers need to dig deeper. Don't just take anything that anybody says on surface at surface value. Now, a lot of affiliates won't tell you their sources because that's their bread and butter. Like they've found that source and they know how to convert it. But I think testing is the big part, is the biggest thing that you can do to get over that. Like before you jump into bed with an affiliate and say, okay, I'll take that traffic source that you found, that golden nugget, like test it first and then test it again. So you don't have to just do like 5 sales or 10 sales and then go, okay, it's, ticked, because that's not necessarily going to give you an accurate representation of where they're getting their traffic from. The other part to that sentence is that immediately affiliate managers, when they see fraud, they go from 0 to 100, and there's no gray bit in between, because it's quite legitimate what you just said, that perhaps an affiliate is doing paid ads. They don't even themselves know that there's fraud in there in whatever they're sending on to you. So especially affiliates that don't know who their customers are, the mechanic of them taking traffic from one place to another and earning commission. So I think you have to have open lines of communication as well, because just because something has happened doesn't necessarily mean that the affiliate knows
Hmm.
that it has. And you'll quickly see when you deal with them how they behave. Like, are they open? Do they say, okay, don't pay me for that traffic up front, so you don't even have to mention it? Like, how are they behaving when you are alerting them to the fact that there is fraud? If they disappear overnight and you never hear from them, well, then sorry, you've been duped and that was like legit fraud. But sometimes these relationships aren't fraudulent, and there's just, tweaks that they need to make on their end to stop those sources of traffic. So I think it's so layered. There's like no black and white from what you're telling me in terms of how to deal with fraud. It's like 50 shades of gray, and
it
maybe
depends
that's
on the person. Yeah.
that you're going to write about, the 50 shades of gray of fraud. But it seems like it really is case by case. You have to create your own strategy for dealing with fraud and detecting fraud and deciding what fraud is for your business.
Yeah. We also have, I have another client that's interesting. They're at a large affiliate,
Yeah.
and they're a client of ours. And what they do is they use our data to identify fraud. They don't do real time blocking. It's just not something that they have built in their system. And their fraud rates have gotten significantly lower since using us. But what's
Yeah.
interesting is when they catch a certain percentage of fraud, like tips over a certain percentage, I don't know what their percentage is, they
Yeah.
will actually call where they're sending the traffic to, the network that they're calling, and say, hey, we just saw a bunch of fraud slip through our system and made it to you. This is the traffic. This is where it came from. Don't pay us on it. We're mitigating it now. Do what you got to do on your side for your clients, because what happens is by taking that proactive approach, they look much better in the eyes of, because they're trying to do things right, right? And
Yeah.
nothing's perfect, but they've got sources that they've trusted for. I mean, the company's been around 20 years. They got sources they trust for years in their network, and they've tested traffic, and then out of the blue, a new source of traffic hits that network, and next thing you know, there's fraud, or somebody gets around the system. Because usually, what affiliates know is that, hey, they're testing my traffic for a couple of weeks. Send the good stuff.
Mm.
These are the ones that, again, are committing the fraud. And then
Yeah.
once they send the good stuff, then they send on the fraudulent traffic, or what they'll call cheap traffic.
Yeah.
Cheap traffic has a lot of fraud in it. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, now they're having an issue with fraud. And if you're not constantly testing those sources, you don't know it. So the testing in the beginning is good. And like you said, test, and then just ongoing testing, because you never know when you're not looking. It's kind of like, I always tell people, it's like a firewall.
Mm.
So network firewall you set up to, protect your network from, network intrusions and stuff like that. Once you set it up and the traffic is coming clean, do you shut it down to save a few bucks? Or do you leave it on because it's there to protect you in case something happens? Almost like insurance policy, right? You have insurance hoping you never use it, but it's in case something happens, and something always happens. So you have to have that insurance policy in place. Same thing with fraud. You can't ever trust it, because again, it's not necessarily the affiliate you're working with, it's where they get their traffic.
I mean, I guess it's also because to me, it's a bit of a love hate thing. Like, you've got to be open and available for new things to come in. But if you've been hit and stung by fraud many, many times, the tendency as an affiliate manager is to just go, nope, if I don't know it, I don't see it, I don't know what it is, I'm not taking it because I've been stung a million times. But in doing so, you're actually also missing opportunities because you might actually have a couple of those affiliates coming in where they are legit, they are genuine, they've maybe tested a poor source of traffic, something happened, and they can quickly rectify it, and then you've missed out on a really good partnership. So you kind of have to go with your gut on this. I think there is no kind of like right or wrong answer. There's the due diligence piece that happens, and then you need to go with your gut, and then you need to let the numbers actually lead you. But what I like about what you said is affiliates need to actually be implementing this, because we've always been speaking to you about how advertisers should be implementing this to prevent fraud coming in. But what I'd love to see is more affiliates adopting tools like this to actually do the stop on their side before they've sent the traffic to the operator, because this slide says it perfectly. If you've got an approach to fraud as if it's a profit center for your affiliate business, you can demand higher rates for the traffic that you're sending because you know it's quality and legit.
And that's one of the questions. Like when you're bringing on a new affiliate,
Yeah.
ask the simple question: what do you do to protect us from fraud? Find out what they're doing. Do they have a third party solution in place? Are they running any data? Because a lot of times you'll hear, "Oh, we run internal tools."
Yeah. What internal tools?
Not enough. I can tell you right now, when they say that's smoke and mirrors. That it's not enough. I have never, in 31 years working on the internet, had an affiliate say, "I use internal tools that actually worked."
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that they don't exist,
Yeah.
because again, there are some that do it,
Checks
but
and balances. Yeah.
it's very, very rare. I've never
Mm.
seen it. I believe it exists. I just never seen it. So you got
Yeah.
to be careful. Like, what are they doing to protect against fraud? If they say, "Well, using a third party tool," great. Which one is it? You know, learn as much as you can about that affiliate, and then always ask the question. I always ask, "Great, you use that tool. Is all the traffic you're selling me filtered by that tool?" Because I had a client. This is an interesting story. I
Mm.
had a customer come to us that was buying traffic from one of my clients,
Yeah.
and they were getting hit with fraud. And I'm like, "But I'm buying from one of your clients. How is that possible?" I said, "Well, ask them the question: is all the traffic that you're buying from them filtered using our tool?"
Mm.
And the answer was no, because it was a newer client. It was a big company. It was a publicly traded company that was with us for maybe a year, and they were in the process of rolling it out to all the divisions. And of course, when you've got 5,000 employees and dozens of profit centers, I mean, it takes time to do that rollout across the entire board. So it was nice. They were able to talk to the my client, and they were able to fast track that center of traffic to get filtered by fraud, so that the client was happy. So I mean, you you got to vet these people out. You got to have your tools in place to say no. And you mentioned on one of the other slides we were talking about, snake oil.
Yeah.
Um, Here's what I've learned. Okay, since we've been selling Anura as a standalone product since 2017, so about 7 years. What I have realized, based on 1,000+ demonstrations I've done and clients I've talked to, is that there are a lot of fraud solutions that pop up out of the woodwork that
Yeah.
claim to be fraud protection, and they really don't.
Yeah.
And because SaaS is sexy, right? SaaS is profitable, and everybody wants it on SaaS, but they never built a real system. They just popped up a system. I even had a developer And I love talking to developers because they love to run tests and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
love testing because that's how you find out stuff. You just don't know until you run tests. And he goes, I ran a simple test that I wrote. And he goes, where I pinged a different solution 1,000 times from the same IP address, same user agent, same person, 1,000 times, and I can't tell you how many different answers I got from them as far as scoring scores I got from them, because they used to score on a lot of systems score from a 0 to 100, right? We're more definitive. We tell you, hey, this is fraud. That's just how we do it. And he goes, then I did yours, and you gave me the exact same answer every single time. He goes, so I don't trust their solution, I trust yours. And I go,
Mm.
that's an interesting comment to make, because again, this is going on that snake oil. Are there some vendors out there that really don't have a solution? So I always tell people, look, when I get on the phone with somebody, I'm technically the sales guy. Don't trust me. Don't
Yeah.
trust them. Trust your own data. You know what the data is supposed to look like. You know what it's supposed to be. So if you're looking at a third-party fraud solution, do your due diligence, find out who's out there. I always recommend, and just to give you an example, there's probably 100 different companies out in the marketplace that do some type of fraud detection. There's a lot of options, but there's only 8 that are certified to follow industry standards. So the industry standards were set by the IAB, which is the Internet Advertising Bureau. And there's 2 organizations that certify that you're following those standards. It's either TAG, or they have a seal called a TAG. So it's Trust and Accountability Group, certified against fraud. So TAG CAF seal. That's one you're looking for. Or you're looking for MRC accredited. And you can go to those sites and look them up. They're pretty simple to do or look up to see if the tool is there. But there's only 8 that are certified following those standards. So at minimum, when you're picking one, pick one that's following standards. At least you have that out of the way. Next,
Well, I think, yeah.
I was
I
going to
mean,
say next, run your tests and look at your own data.
I mean, I think it's super important that point, because just like with your affiliate tracking solution, I mean, it's the kind of like skeleton of your program. It's what everything is built on. So you don't want to skimp on your tech that's going to tell you and help you decide where you're going to spend your money. Because if your tracking is wrong, your BI data is wrong, you're making the wrong commercial decisions. And if your fraud is coming in on top of that, you really are spending your money in all the wrong places. And that means you're not being the custodian of your company's budget, and that's what your job is as an affiliate manager, is to spend the money wisely and responsibly.
Yeah.
So fraud is evolving, but like, how do we need to advise people to evolve with it? Because like, what was fraudulent 31 years ago when you first started in the industry, where it was like click fraud and, cookie stuffing and all of that kind of stuff? What's happening now? Like, what are you seeing now that's like new and unique and popping up on the crevices that people need to be watching out for?
AI,
Mm.
right? So here's what's happening now that we're seeing it. And I mean, AI has been around for decades. It's gotten real popular with ChatGPT in the last couple of years here. But right now, you can go onto the dark web and look up and download an application called Fraud GPT and start building, automated ad bots to click on ads and act like humans. Now,
Okay,
a
now we don't
company
want
like
to
us,
learn how to do fraud. We want to educate them on how to stop it, right?
well, I'm with you, because
You need to know how to do it in order to stop it. So
before that, it was easy. It was, easier, I should say, to identify fraud.
yeah.
With the introduction of AI bots, it gets more difficult because these AI bots can pass CAPTCHA. So
Mm,
I mean, there was a report, and I want to say it was 2017
yeah.
by Harvard Business,
Okay.
that 94%. I'm just trying. I'm pretty close in these numbers. I just don't quote me on the numbers. 94% of captchas have been beaten by bots. That was 2017.
Doesn't surprise me.
Here we are 7 years later. I don't think there's a captcha out there that hasn't been beaten by at least the AI bots that are out there. So
Mm,
really, though, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how sophisticated a bot is. You're going to be able to identify that looking at your backend data, because again, affiliates get paid very quickly, and sometimes it takes even with the all real-time stuff, sometimes just transactions, or let's say if you get a lead filled out on a form, that's performance marketing, right? Somebody fills out a lead, you're not going to know that's fraud until you process that lead. So you process the lead. Look, I've got Rich Kahn's information. He's from Middletown, Delaware. I got his right phone number, his email address. Hey, this looks good. Send it off to the call center. Call center picks up the phone call. My phone starts ringing. I don't recognize the number, so I don't answer. So why would somebody say I'm interested in your product and within seconds ghost you?
yeah.
That's a kind of fraud, right? Or
Yeah.
what? Or shit, that I don't know. I recognize this number. Let me let me answer this one because it just looks, maybe I recognize the number.
Yeah.
I think I recognize the number. I answer the phone and find out it's somebody trying to sell me solar panels, right? No, I don't have any idea. I don't know what you felt. So there's but it takes time to process that and identify that. And a lot of people don't realize, hey, somebody ghosting you after 10 or 15 phone calls after they just filled out a form, is a sign of fraud. Or the ability to say, hey, I never filled out your form, and they swear up and down they didn't fill out your form. Some call centers just chalk it up to, hey, they probably filled out a co-reg and they don't recognize that they filled out something. Or no, it's not definitive, but it's a sign that there's fraud there, especially when it happens more often. In fact, in the lead gen space, 1 in 4 leads are filled out through a bot, malware, or human fraud forms. And human fraud forms are the hardest because they get around CAPTCHA. If you're recording the screen, everything looks legit. They can use fake credit cards, and they're cheap to hire. You can hire a human fraud form right now for like $9 an hour.
What?
Gets around a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Even a
Oh my
minimum
god.
wage. I mean, it's crazy that it's enabled. But these are the loopholes that have occurred as the internet has grown forward. So this is a bit of a busy slide, but tell us a little bit about what Anura actually does, because we haven't got onto that.
Yeah. Let's boil it down to something simple.
Mm.
It's a visitor firewall,
Yeah.
right? So we talked about a firewall before. So this is, hey, a visitor comes in, and I can identify a good visitor versus a
Mm.
fake visitor. And a fake, we're talking about bots, malware, human fraud forms. And where does that fit into the ecosystem of digital marketing? Pretty much everywhere. We've got this search and social protect that ties into all the major networks that a lot of people are spending money on. Nor script, which is basically JavaScript. A visitor lands on a landing page. We collect over 800 data points on the visitor. We don't collect PII, other than the IP address based on GDPR, which I have a technical disagreement with, but that's besides the point. They let us collect it from recital 47 because it's for fraud detection. But anyway, so that script collects over 800 data points on the visitor when they land on the page, and within a second responds back if it's real or fake. That fits into credit card forms, login pages, form fill outs, all kinds of stuff. Bottom right, if you're running ad tags, so like maybe Google AdSense or different things on your landing pages, we can protect all that. We talk about our Anura Direct, which is an API integration, great for email marketing, website filtering, ping posts, things like that. So pretty much anywhere you can think of, there is
Yeah.
a place where Anura can fit in. Because essentially, when it comes down to it, we have two basic integrations. One is API driven, one is JavaScript driven, that are simple but flexible to fit almost any potential need that a client needs.
Yeah. So it's basically your power suit. You put your power suit on and nothing, and you're impenetrable. I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean. Okay. Yeah, impenetrable. Why investing in fraud detection is crucial for ongoing success. So I think we've kind of covered that. The longer you wait, the more money you're leaving on the table. Fraud doesn't sleep, and neither should you. It's not hard to actually implement. I mean, you're offering everybody a free trial on this. So just, head on over to the website, take the QR code that's on the screen right now if you're watching this instead of listening to it. The cost pays for itself because it isn't a cost to actually implement fraud. It's more of a profit margin finder for your business. And it's already happening to you. Like there's no way in, God's green planet that we live on that nobody is experiencing no fraud. It's just not, possible in terms of the way that the internet is built and how people are transacting throughout the internet. And also all the fractions between all the different platforms that are directing traffic to yours. So, you've, as you saw on that previous slide, there's lots of different ways that customers can now find you. There isn't a linear customer journey. And so there's lots of different pockets where fraudsters can actually get in and send that traffic to you. So I think it's very important that people like really listen to this and actually take heed that if they do nothing, they're never going to get ahead. So maybe, at the £5,000 mark, if that's all that you're spending this month, you're only experiencing, 5% fraud. Maybe it's not nothing that you want to be looking at right now. But if you're at the £25,000 mark or £1 million mark, this is something that you really do need to be looking at. And if you don't have fraud detection, you can't actually scale your program significantly without impacting other parts of your business. So I think that's kind of the message for the day. And in terms of what's next, I think it's a kind of no-brainer. But take a screen dump of the QR code that's on your screen now, and take the free trial. Like, just go and actually have a look at what's happening with your own traffic, understand what that percentage is, and start paying only for traffic that's real and that is actually going to impact your business, and get serious about detecting fraud.
Yeah, but I mean, we always tell people that the trial, the whole goal of the trial is two things. One, to understand how much fraud you're dealing with
Mm,
and where is it coming from. And then, of course, we come up with a game plan to mitigate, assuming it makes sense financially. Like you said, you're spending 50,000, 100,000. You're already spending the money on fraud. It's already you're already losing it. So, like I love the example. Like, okay, you're spending $100,000 a month on digital marketing.
mm.
We know that on average, $25,000 is being lost to fraud. So you're already paying the fraudsters $25,000. So you can continue doing that.
Want to or not.
You can continue doing that, or you can spend a few dollars to identify where it's coming from, mitigate that, and then move that budget to productive traffic, which is good traffic, and see a lift in ROI.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just makes sense, really.
Mhm.
It's that simple. It has been a pleasure to have you on the on the podcast, on the webinar today. If you've got any questions for Rich, how can they contact you, Rich?
Anura.io is the easiest way to get to us. Me directly is rich at Anura.io. I'm pretty responsive on email. Probably
Mm-hmm.
spend too much time in email, but that's just how I've always been.
Of course.
Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, easy to find, and I post a lot of content on LinkedIn as well. So that keeps people understanding what's going on with the space of fraud.
Yeah. So if you're in the AI industry and you're concerned about some of those things, get in touch with Rich. Scan the QR code, get the free trial, have a look at what's happening with your traffic. And hopefully, this webinar has helped you guys to get ahead of and mitigate fraud that might be coming into your affiliate programs or even into your direct advertising, because it is out there. It is happening to everybody. There's no way to really stamp it out 100% unless you've got tools like this implemented into your tech stack. It's been a pleasure to have you on the webinar today again, Rich, and thank you so much for sharing all of these stories and anecdotes of things that are really happening in real life that, we don't get to see and hear because we're always focused on our own business. But I hope these lessons are going to help people really get serious about fraud and start to, stamp it out and get more vigilant about it.
Appreciate the time.